All right. We finally got snow, man.
Lucky you. Lucky you. How many inches you got? 2?
Just started this morning. It's supposed to go all day, so we'll probably get about from 0 to 16 inches probably or something. No, I don't know. But, you know.
Better than nothing.
Just
like winter wonderland. You got a little winter wonderland coming.
Yeah, for sure. Going to experiment with cross-country skiing.
There you go. Can't wait to hear about that. It'll be kicking the new year. We're almost there. The end of the year, December 19th. The year, not very much longer, but it's still 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. Listen to the Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 822.
Yeah. Your triathlon podcast still going strong. Deep into December.
Deep. I mean, like real deep. Most people have checked out and they're going to come back till January, which is, what we're going to do after today, but it's always nice to offer a little, little appetizer to the following year, which is kind of what today may or may not be, or maybe what do they call it? A mouche-bouche, a little taster to get things started.
Maybe, or
yeah,
it could be. What did we call last part? What did I call that? Just go for it or take.
Yeah, just send it, baby.
I mean, that's just like this ought to be the perfect poster child for that, because we're both sitting around in our pre-cast meeting going, I think everything's been said.
It is so
I mean, listen, I feel like that a lot, actually, about the world, man. It's like, man.
It is.
How can we reframe
there's a lot going on about a lot of things, but it is. It's this time. That's why you don't see, I don't listen to that many podcasts in general at all, but there's a few that I like to listen to because just to see what guests they have on, because I like to pick and choose, if it's a guest I'm entertained with, usually it's a coach or an athlete, and I like to kind of just listen to what they have to say about things. And last 3 or 4 days, nada. Scroll through, nobody's listen, people are checked out, and I get it. It's that we're kind of in no man's land. It was already kind of a no man's land 21 days with the later Thanksgiving. Yeah, Christmas. Kids are getting out of school. If you got older kids, or kids are coming back from college break. So there's a pretty high likelihood that no one's even going to listen to this, one, or two, if they do listen to it, it's going to be in January when they're motivated again. Because right now, people are all about eggnog, a little bourbon in their coffee, having, funnel cakes and pound cakes for appetizers, and then whatever they want to. Then that's just kind of 'tis the season. But I was out this morning, knew we had the podcast today, and figured while it might be short and sweet, hopefully it could be at least, borderline. Powerful is way too strong of a word, but I would say, it's kind of looking back through this last year, and I don't know what it is about the new year coming, and because it's just such a fucking date on the calendar, and just the date clicks over. But it's interesting how it has this power over people to the entire year goes by and people can have little to no motivation, little no direction, little to know why, little to know, like you talked about, having a set compass in this last podcast about direction and a purpose and a why. And people can just flail and wander aimlessly all year long with just no real desire to do anything. But here comes January 1st, just a simple date on the calendar, and people get their juices flowing. It's an interesting phenomenon to me how that gets people. I mean, if we're being fair, it only gets them rolling for about 3 weeks, something like that. But I was on my walk this morning with Waffles. I was thinking about this last year and thinking about this next year, and going through how things have progressed with athletes and myself. And I was just kind of trying to figure out the one main thing that I learned about myself this last year from an athletic standpoint. And, because I think everyone does a little bit of decoding of their own performance or lack of performance in races. And they do the same thing with their training, what kind of, swimmer and cyclist and runner am I, and how can I be better next year, and all these things to unpack. And I think the biggest thing for me that I noticed was, one, when I was in, and I saw glimpses of still having the ability that I would love to have for a long period of time. That would ultimately be the only way to ever get any of the results I feel still I need to check off my list. And these may or may never happen. I think I put my decadathon bucket list. Like I do want to go sub 10 in an Ironman. I do want to go sub 430 in a 7.3. I have, I think, like 5 in the 430 to 440 range. So it's kind of a little bit of a bugaboo for me. But there were glimpses this year, like when I got training in line, that I saw glimpses of that 100% possible. So while I saw that I still have the ability, even at my age, I'm not that old, but at my age, still have the ability to do those things. What I also saw was an inability to hold that line for long periods of time enough to see the actual fruits of that ability come to fruition. And whether that is a result of, doing too much at once, whether it was not balancing things correctly, whether, with life and training and work and family priorities and all those things, or whether it was trying to rush things, whether it was putting too much pressure on myself. There was a disconnect somewhere where I either, like going into the Ironman Texas and everything that I felt that morning, and then the racing after that. And this year, it's like to me, an important piece for me is to not unlock the ability, but to unlock what's creating the inability to see the kind of the fruits of what I think I could have with a little bit of labor. And so I think that's like for me, and this isn't going to be a podcast about me figuring that out because I don't have a clue yet. But it was like the one thing that kind of came to my top of mind this morning as I was kind of looking back over the course of the year. And you and I talk a lot online and offline about, and on this podcast, right, about just overall general health and like how we feel. And to be totally honest, like this is, while my training volume is definitely not super high, this is generally the best that I've felt physically from a health standpoint in years, I think. I feel really good. I'm sleeping great. My it's not a diet, but my nutrition, I finally think I figured out like a nice happy medium between what to eat and what not to eat and how much and how little. And I just feel really, really good every day. And so that's given me a little more hope that I can find like something that's sustainable. Even this morning, if I'm being totally transparent, I get up, I have a cup of coffee. The first thing I did was, I wonder what kind of Ironmans are still open next year. And then about 30 seconds later, I was like, fuck that, dude. I can't do that. Like, you got to, if you're going to get back in the game, you got to look at Olympics and 70.3s. That's your sweet spot. Don't try to go big. But it's interesting how like that, your first love is like always there. Like, for me and for you too, right? It's like your first love is Ironman. It's the first thing you kind of, you started to do, and it kind of like it's what gravitated you towards sports. Your first inclination, your first bug is always going to be that one. And I was like, no, stop it. I closed out all windows, shut all things down, and I was like, no. What you need to do first is figuring out what's causing that inability to continue on, and either whether it's keeping attention span or whether it's keeping or maintain that volume, whether it's too much pressure. You got to figure that out first before you can figure out anything else. So that was whether this topic or not, that was my thought, my early morning dog walk thoughts with no music and just me and my thoughts alone. And that's where I found myself today.
Well, it's always good to reflect, man. I mean, I think that's where, the truth comes out. And the weird part is it takes time. Like I've been writing a lot lately, and I kind of sort of go in the middle of my writing. A lot of times I'm sort of like, man, I knew this. What, I mean, how, we want shit like instantly now. And whenever something doesn't happen, we kind of lose, track of what our big picture was. And you were kind of talking about, results and what kind of results, are coming, or what do we want this next year, whatever, or getting good results. And I've been like thinking about that, because a lot of times that seems to drive my short term, but I'm more interested in getting in love with the process. That's kind of where I've been for a while now. And, because I can, like you're saying, man, I can put that Ironman on the calendar, and then it just sort of like, dictates me in a weird way. Like I want to have, a good race, but a lot of times I feel like I'm doing that for somebody else. Whether it's being, just to show out or show I still got it or whatever like that. But I'm really more interested in, you said you've been feeling great. And I actually wrote in my athlete email last week or the week before or something. it's okay to feel good. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like we if we kind of find a good groove and we're feeling good and we got a lot of energy, you know, it's sort of like, I need to like, and it's almost like we feel like we need to turn the screws on ourselves a little bit more to make it harder. And it's kind of weird to think about it that way, because we always talk about how hard life is. And then when we kind of have it going good, we're like, how can we fuck this up? You know? And that's one of the main things that I'm interested in, is that always that feel good quotient. I'm looking for ways to train that make me feel good. I kind of I was doing it a lot last year, where I was like, you know, I wasn't maybe running as much as normal, and I was doing a lot of sup boarding, and all that stuff kind of translated a little bit. It wasn't like crystal clear for me, but I knew that, you know, like, how would you describe it? You know, you said you're feeling good. It's just sort of this general sense of like, you have energy, and, you know, throwing clothes in the washer doesn't annoy you as much, or what, you know what I mean? Like it's like all those little things that take just a bit of mental energy kind of like start adding up. But if you're, you know, you're feeling good, you got good energy. And I always talk about that all the time, is like the goal is energy, because I think somewhere along the line we decided that we had to do shit in a way that kind of, you know, man, that crushed me, man. I'm hammered. You know, it's like, and then you get in a loop of always seeking that kind of worn out. But you know, it's that thing, you know, from podcast 1 or whatever. And I said, exercise should give you energy, not take it away. That just rings so loud in my head all the time. You know, it's like, man, especially as I get older, and I just want to feel good, you know, more often, and have the energy to do things that, you know, I don't want to just have the energy to finish an Ironman. I want to be able to live like on a daily and do stuff that, you know, has been, you know, sitting in my, you know, bottom drawer for a long time. So while I will still compass myself most likely, I'm just trying to shift my perspective on what it means. You know, I don't want to get so tied up in the idea that, you know, I've got a goal set for 12 hours or whatever, and then I go 12:40 and it bums me out. That's just weird, man. It's only 45 minutes. I mean, this podcast would be shorter than that. You know what I mean? It's like a whole year, and then you're going to worry about like 30 minutes or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
When you did something amazing.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I think if we like put our powers combined, we would have like the super athlete.
That's probably true.
We both like in certain areas complement each other so well, and are like how far we get in one direction, and then like the balance that would ensue between both. But no, I love what you said there, and it's something I thought a lot about this morning too. I was like, you know, you can feel great and you can feel healthy. And, you know, I use this phrase, I think I used this quote a couple weeks ago that I heard on another podcast that I loved, that was stimulate, don't obliterate. And that is like so much of how I'm trying to think about my training this next year, and what I want to do, what I want to accomplish but also with not a new lens, because that seems way too cliche for the start of a year, but in the appropriate lens that I have to look through life at the moment, you know, because I think that's an important thing that sometimes we talked about having like our first love is, and you kind of always want to go back to that. And I get texts every week from athletes. Hey, you signed up for Wisconsin, and hey, you see, we're St. George. It's the last year, baby. You're gonna come on and sign up. A little bit of trash talk, and like, I haven't done any of it. I haven't bitten on the trash talk and the teases yet, but it's like, for me, it's never the result that has to be the focus. Like you said, like if I go back and I look at the best years I've ever had, none of it were chasing results. I was just super in love with a process, and not just a process, but a process that fit seamlessly into my life. And that was it. It complemented everything that I wanted to do perfectly. And it just fit seamlessly. Nothing felt forced. I was excited about everything. And yes, all my life is like really, really different compared to what it was then. There still is that formula. But it's, I think, one of the hardest parts of figuring out new formulas for yourself, because this is, and it's always harder doing it for yourself, right? Like, I have supreme, ultimate, unwavering confidence in my ability to coach every athlete that I work with. I have 20% of that when it comes to coaching myself. I just don't have like the same objectivity. I don't have the same confidence. None of it. It's totally reverse. I do not have it when it comes to coaching myself. I just don't. I don't know why. I think a lot of people are like that, but that's also why, most people tell you everyone should have a coach, because you can't be objective and you're always going to overthink things, and you're always going to, I like when it comes to like program parameters, like, I don't even have to think. Like, I just do it. I've been doing it for so long. It comes naturally. I can see things. I can do things. I can program things. I can, it's just done. With me, I mean, you'd think I was trying to like create like the newest equation, like a dry erase board you see up in Harvard. And I'm like, why the fuck do you just go out and run for 30 minutes? Like, I get like so frustrated with myself when I do that. But so like, because looking like through my own lens, like I'm still like distorted, right? It's like my left eye is looking through my old lens at my old love. And then my right side is like totally different lens, totally different, like, what can you do? What is reasonable to do? And then how do you get there? And they're totally different. And so for me, like, one of the things I've committed to doing here the next like 5 to 10 days of off time is, take a little time. And again, there's no such thing as a perfect formula ever. I mean, the closest thing anyone to get to a perfect formula is just committing to be consistent. And so that's the number one thing. But it's to not even focus on a race or a result or a time, but is to focus on getting a process that fits into my life seamlessly, and then tweak it from there. And I think that's the most important thing going into this next year, is how to tweak, how to find that, puzzle piece that fits in perfectly. Maybe it doesn't fit. Maybe you got to jam it. Maybe it comes a little bit loose. Maybe it's kind of like everyone's anxiety when they need to buy a new fridge, measuring, right? You don't want too big of a gaps, on both sides, but if you buy a fridge and it doesn't fit, you're fucked, right? So it's like, you want that perfect snug fit. You measure it like a million times to make sure you get it. It comes in the door and you're like, this isn't going to fit. This isn't going to fit, and then you like, maybe you came in, like squeeze in between the counter, and then it fits snug as a bug in a rug, and you're all set. But and to me, like that is like how I'm thinking about trying to find like the right fit. But the truth of the matter is I'm not a cutout. I'm not a fridge. I might find where it's too near. I might find where it's too large. But finding the right formula to me is way more important than picking an answer, right? It's about a formula and then its answer or a solution. A lot of people like to work their way backwards and like, I'm going to find, this is what I want to get. How do we get there? I'm like, well, first we need to find the right formula that you can actually complete, right? So it's like, hey, I'm good at math. Give me a problem. I'm going to work on it. But if I give you one that's too hard, you're not going to learn anything. You're going to be stuck in the same problem. You get it wrong over and over again. And so I think like, I guess, yeah, like that's for me, like this, looking at this past year and not this past year, the past half decade of undulating roller coasters and in and out and peaking for like 2.5 seconds and then retracting for like 8 months. And it's not, I know I have it still in there, but it's just not, I haven't made it the formula sustainable. And I think like for me, sustainability, just like feeling great every day, feeling healthy every day, that is also part of that piece, is that I want to continue to always feel this way, because it makes me, so when I look at the formula, like you said, like it needs to complement the current state of like, I guess, overall wellness that I feel at the moment, which is a very high level of just overall mental, emotional health. Like I said, I'm sleeping great. I feel energized. Like I'm not like, I just feel really, really good. And so I want those things to complement that. And if it doesn't complement it, then I need to be confident enough and objective enough to scrap it. Hey, yeah, you get 3 more hours a week, and that might get you, over the course of the year, 25 more minutes off X race. But if it makes you feel worse, because sometimes, let's be honest, like, Ironman training doesn't necessarily make you feel good. 70.3 training doesn't make you always feel good. Like some of the cravings that it gives you post-ride, post-run during the middle of the week, the stuff you got to take in sometimes doesn't make you feel good. So it's like, what are you willing to, to sacrifice or not willing to sacrifice to keep that baseline level of just like how you feel from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed. And that's not something that I want to lose this year. And so I know that's going to have to be something I'm going to have to take a very, very, very hard look at in terms of, what's going to complement. And like you said, like one of the very first podcasts is like supposed to give you energy. What's going to continue to give me energy and allow me to do more things with that energy versus what's going to take away more time committed to that training process. And also, what is the depletion of energy from that training going to make the rest of my life look like at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm always trying to communicate to athletes in that, here's your outline. And we've talked about this many times. It's not written in stone. Nothing's in stone, even though it looks like it is in Training Peaks. But, it's sort of like, okay, I'm a little wiped out, or I'm, not feeling like totally pumped. So here's some easy shit. And then like 2 days later, you feel good and you go overboard or whatever. And I think that, that fridge example, it's sort of like, don't force it. Maybe it's a little big and you can get it in there, but you're never going to be happy with it. You know what I mean? It's like, you're always going to be like, shit, that's rubbing the counter and it's kind of fraying up the edge or whatever. And I just think there's something so powerful there, I've talked about it incessantly about how I undertrain and stuff like that. And I don't think that it necessarily, like I see a lot of times that when I know that I'm in good enough shape, but I'm always trying to, my goal is always to feel the best I've felt all year on race day and be able to move because I know I can do it. You're talking, especially at Ironman level, it's not like you have to have you have to be fit, don't get me wrong, but it's more like, it's not like I'm sucking gas all day. You know what I mean? It's sort of like you just want to have your body feeling strong and being able to hang in there and hold up. And like, I've always just looked at race day as that's the day when you want to suffer. If you got it in you or whatever, but I don't like suffering the whole way up there. And when I say suffer, that doesn't mean I don't like to do harder stuff, but it doesn't, like how you feel on an Ironman, at least me, that back half of the marathon, kind of that zombie sort of out of it thing that people feel a lot, I think. That's not a feeling you want to have a lot, I think, during training. I just think you want to build to a point where you're at the best you on that day. And then, if you got to go through some of that, treachery on a race day, then that's that. But I'm talking mainly like fulls, but,
right.
Yeah, I mean, you're feeling good. And it's just, to me, that just means like, all right, well, you just kind of sprinkle on top of that. Right. And then you kind of find your edge. A lot of times I'll be usually it's a swim and whatever. And I'm like, I've set out to do 4,000 or whatever. And I get to 3,000. I'm like, damn, I'm pretty impressed with how I feel right now. And I got a big ride this weekend or whatever. It's like, this is good, man. I think I got 4, I've talked about that a lot, but I just really think that's a concept that's worked for me is sort of like, I feel really good after doing 2 loops of the Ironman bike course or whatever. I feel good. Let's pack it up. Nah, let's do another one. And then just shred your ass. And like, to me, that's always like a kind of a confidence issue. It's like, yeah, we could do it, but do we want to just destroy ourselves right now? Sometimes you might want to do that. I don't know. I mean, that's a depends when it is kind of thing. And why not? Let's go do another loop. Let's do 3. Or do you want to kind of keep building the right way and feel good along the process and know that you got it? But you don't always have to prove it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's that. I mean, and that should be on like a weekly, monthly basis. And I think that's the hardest part. Then the trap that we all fall into is when we doubt ourselves, we do nothing or we do too much. Right. Like, so if we start to doubt ourselves and our abilities or where we are with training or our progression or how close or far away we are from our goal, most people's answer isn't to, stay the course and do the run as prescribed and execute it. It's to either just take the day off because they're dejected, or to go run all out 10K to prove themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like we never,
I get that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, we never fall like in that like, hey, listen, like, we love to test and we love to push ourselves, right? I think that's just how humans are and how society has become. Like, it's not the highlight reel, but it's the headline grabbing workout is the one that's going to really, really tantalize us and be engaging enough for us to be excited about. You don't see any, headlines. There's like, man wakes up and does his job today and goes home to his family and goes to bed at 8. It's like, it's all that doesn't get anybody going, right? It's not sensational enough. Like we for some reason we need something like super sensational, or on the other, like the flip side, we need something like, so like we need to just be the total other direction and just like almost give up or all in. There's no like happy medium. But the happy medium, right, is the only sustainable piece. Like giving up 24/7 and sitting on your ass and being sedentary isn't the answer, nor is drilling yourself on the ground and I'll sleep when I'm dead. That mentality, that's not sustainable either. I mean, you'll reach your goal at 50 because you're gonna die from burnout and disease, but so maybe it is sustainable, but you're not gonna be able to do it for very long. But it's that happy, boring medium that is the way to, one, breed and be successful, but also to allow your body to like just have general cardiovascular health, which is a great marker for longevity and overall like health and wellness. But it's just not super exciting. So it's always a hard balance. And I think the more things that an athlete introduces into the formula, right? Like I was talking about my finding my right formula for this year, and maybe we can even end it here, but is finding the right formula for me and where I am, not with my fitness, but with my life. My formula should be, at its base, a 2 + 2 = 4 formula. On a stretch day, maybe a 2 + 2 + 2 = 6 formula. That's it. It should be that simple, with no extra inputs. What you oftentimes see with athletes is the more input you have into your formula to get the solution that you want, the less likely you are to solve it, right? So then you have the 2 × 6 parentheses 2 divided by 5 to the third power, and you got all these extra metrics and things you have to do, and metrics to meet, and scores and data points, and extra input, extra output. It makes your formula so confusing that even if you mess up like one part of it, whether it's the front end of this really long formula or the back end, you're going to get the answer wrong. Simplify it, and I get, as a coach, like, and I've got, I love going down that rabbit hole a lot with these metrics and data. And so for some athletes, it's really, really beneficial, and you can see a lot of growth and a lot of performance gains from it. But some people, you just need a 2 + 2. And that's where I am, right? It's like, you just need a 2 + 2. Like, give me a 2 + 2, which is this, and you can execute that. And here's the thing: it's like, oh, it's too easy. Well, maybe you need to do that too easy, for a bit, to prove that you can do something not so easy. And I think that's like, something that we all struggle with, is you think the more complicated the problem is, the better the solution is. But if you can't execute the formula, you're never going to get the solution.
Yeah, I like that. I think at least with me, it's kind of like we really need to decide who we are, and then follow that pattern. There are people I've known who lived hard and died young, and that's just how they wanted to do it. I remember it was like I was in my 20s or something, and some guy I kind of knew, it was like, died on a motor, like one of those motorcycle things where this crotch rocket, wheelie.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a funeral, and his family's like, hey, that's just how he lived, and it wasn't like a super depressing situation. I mean, everybody's sad, obviously, but it's kind of like the dude made the decision, you know, and I think he came from a race family or some shit like that. It was just sort of this high energy. This is just what we do. And people do that, and I get that. But like to try and act like that, if you're not like that, I think there's kind of confusion there. And that's, you know, that's like, I get into that trap too. I'm like, one day I'm Goggins and the next day I'm fucking Thich Nhat or whatever, trying to meditate or whatever. So it's like weird. So find your middle ground, find out, figure out who you are, do your 2+2, maybe add a 2, if that's what it is. I mean, we are an endurance sport. It's not like, we're Red Bull, like sky jumpers or anything like that. So it's like, it has to be a little bit kind of chill. But I think just generally kind of that, peace of mind, that, comfortable in your own skin thing is what we should really just kind of, figure out and accept and be. And I do think that translates into, this is endurance sport. So you want to feel good. You want to be at peace and relaxed and strong enough to go the distance. It doesn't have to be, earth shattering.
And your formula just needs to be your formula.
Yeah. Decide who you are, man.
Right. And decide who you are and what's sustainable and what formula can you actually answer for week in and week out. And if you're ready to add an extra part of the equation, you better be ready to answer it. Because if you're not, then then what are you setting yourself up for, right? Success, failure, incompletion. And I think that the ramifications of that, I think, are oftentimes underlooked and not talked about enough. Is when you set the bar too high or you add another piece of the equation and you can't answer, or you feel like you can't keep up, what that does to your psyche, right? What that does to your confidence level and your motivation level, because you're used to being able to nail things in and out and be sustainable, and you want to feel good about what you're doing, right? And so again, like I think there are performance gains to be had, and yes, you'll see a lot of posts about, and yes, is volume important? Sure, it's definitely important. But if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And, so you can read all these things and see all these Instagram posts and read these articles and listen to these podcasts about volume and volume and volume and volume, but if that's not you, then you're going to be trying to solve a wrong answer every single week. And at some point you're just going to quit, because who wants to keep working on a problem they can't solve? And so when you're looking at next year and looking at your formula or the formula your coach puts in, and you always want 5 more hours, but until you can consistently do 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks of reasonable happy medium hours, then you shouldn't be asking for more. If you're programming for yourself, just remember, like the burnout to me often comes with is just the result of too high of expectations and inappropriate formula. Because again, who wants to keep working on a math problem they can't solve? No fun. Yeah. Right? If you work at it maybe and practice it, sure. But you only do that with confidence, right? And you have to build through that to get there. You can't just do it out of the gate, right? It's like no one starts with fill in the blank questions. They start with flashcards, one at a time, repetitive. Do it over again. Do it so many times you won't have to think about it. And then you get it right. And then you take the test and you ace it, right? You don't do it in reverse. And a lot of people try to do all these things in reverse because they want to start at the end, but start where things need to be started at. And I think that's, at least a solid way to, look at this next year. And you're still programming your next year, trying to figure out what to do next year. And you're, only, focusing on those things, then, at least try to make sure that you're, doing the things that you want to do with the time you have, and make sure you're having fun with it.
Yeah, I think that's good, man.
So, and as always, we paced ourselves today. We didn't go over, we didn't go under. It's just kind of where we are. So we hope we'll be off next week. We hope everybody has an amazing Christmas. Spend some time with your family, watch some college football, whatever else you want to watch. Enjoy that. And again, if you're feeling a little like you're wavering and not focused on next year, or need some help with your formula, or you've been trying your own formula and you keep getting it wrong year in and year out expecting to get the right answer, check out our website. c26triathlon.com and is our one-stop shop for all things coaching camps and community. Click on the coaching tab and either pick the coach that you find is connect with you the best, or just let us pick the one out for you. Mike's always available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me specifically, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. Have a great Christmas. And
you too, man.
See
you, buddy.
Everybody out there. See you later.